Good morning. My name is Adrian Alvarez, and I am an anesthesiologist from the Italian hospital in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I will be talking about the science behind ERAS. My disclosures are that I am the founder and president of the Latin American chapter of ERAS Society, ERAS LATAM, and also I am ERAS Society Vice President of Implementation. In the following 10 minutes or so, I am going to talk about how did this concept started, which is the evidence behind ERAS. Also, I'm going to share with you some conclusions after discussing about the evidence that exists. And finally, for those who want to change from traditional care to the enhanced recovery methodology, I'm going to share some practical recommendations. So the first question is, how did it start? And to give an answer to this question, we need to talk about this man, Henry Kellett. Henry Kellett is a colorectal surgeon from Copenhagen, Denmark, who published in 1999 a very impressive article in which he showed that their patients, after open sigmoidectomies, remained in hospital only for 2 days. What was impressive is that at that time, and I would say that almost today is the same, the average length of stay was between 8 to 10 days, and their patients were only 2 days in hospital. What they did different was that they had a multidisciplinary, multimodal approach to surgery, focusing on reducing the general stress response. And they focused mainly in some aspects. For example, providing optimal analgesia, mainly using neuraxial analgesia, spinal and especially epidural, to avoid fluid overload and to promote early feeding and early ambulation. In 2010, Baradan and co-workers published the first meta-analysis of 6 randomized controlled trials, and this was a major breakthrough. And they showed that patients treated with the ERAS concept has a very significant reduction in length of stay and also in complications, while reoperations and readmissions remain the same. So the kind of approach was safe. In 2014, this group from Italy, in this case, the group of Greco and co-workers, published another meta-analysis showing the same phenomenon. They included 16 randomized controlled trials, and they found the same thing: reductions in length of stay, reductions and complications, and no modifications in reoperations and readmissions. So with these kind of numbers, with these results, the question at that time was, which is the key to success? Because everyone wanted to do that. And the group from Gustafsson, a colorectal surgeon from Stockholm, studied the correlation between the amount of elements of ERAS care that were applied and how that impact on outcomes. And what they found was that the higher the compliance to ERAS care elements, the better the outcomes. But that is the result of just one hospital. So one may ask, what happens in a group of hospitals? In 2015, the ERAS compliance group published this paper in which they showed that 13 hospitals from 6 different countries, when they applied the ERAS concepts with a high adherence level, the results were the same. So the higher the compliance, the better the outcomes. But it emerged another question: would it also impact in survival of cancer patients? And the answer to that question is yes. And again, the group of Gustafsson from Stockholm studied a group of patients, and they divided the group in 2 subgroups. One was called high adherence group, with more than 70% of compliance to ERAS care elements, and the low adherence group, less than 70%. And when these two groups were compared, the risk of death related specifically to cancer was reduced by 42% in favor of the high adherence group. And what happens in a country when you apply the ERAS methodology in a country? And to answer this question, this is a very interesting publication from Spain. It is called the Power Study. They included more than 2,300 patients from 80 different Spanish hospitals. So in some sense, it reflects what can happen in a country when you apply ERAS. And what they found was exactly the same phenomenon. When the compliance was higher, the outcomes were better. So we can conclude after this evidence that when you apply ERAS, you can reduce the length of stay, you can expect a reduction in complications, and also you can expect an improvement in survival. And in addition, it is safe because you will not expect a difference in readmissions or reoperations. But what is very important is that this will happen when the level of compliance to the ERAS care elements are high. So, to finalize, I will share with you some conclusions, not only based in this evidence, but also in my experience training and leading this project in a continental scale. First, you need to follow some evidence-based guidelines. ERAS Society Guidelines is a good example of this. No tradition, evidence. Second, you must build a multidisciplinary work. And third, once you have decided what guidelines the team are going to follow, and you have a consolidated team, multidisciplinary team, that team has to work in a quality improvement cycle. That means that the team has to plan what they are going to do, then they have to execute that plan. After the execution of the plan, they have to audit the results of what they have done, but mainly the processes that lead the team to those outcomes, because an outcome is a consequence of the process. Once you identify an error in that process, you can correct it. And then, after adjusting what is wrong, you have to start the cycle again. But to do that, you need to have data. So I am going to quote Edward Deming, who said that in God we trust, all others must bring data. And to finalize the lecture, I am going to quote him again, because it is not enough to do your best. You must know what to do. In this case, you have to follow the evidence, the guidelines. And then you have to do your best. What is your best? Try to apply the major amount of elements of care as possible. Thank you very much.